I arrived at the upscale restaurant The Sterling Room for my mother's 60th birthday dinner. The mahogany tables gleamed, crystal chandeliers cast golden light, and my sister Madison already sat beside Mom, both studying leather-bound menus. When the waiter approached, Mom ordered Madison the $200 surf and turf special, then looked directly at me and announced I should have brought food from home since I'm always struggling financially anyway. The entire restaurant seemed to pause. I felt my jaw clench but forced myself to smile. The smile on my face felt like concrete drying in the sun, hard and unnatural, but I held it. I'd arrived 45 minutes early to help set up this dinner, carrying a bouquet of purple orchids that had cost me $78 at the specialty flower shop downtown. Mom's favorite flowers. She hadn't even glanced at them when I placed them carefully beside her chair. 3 months ago, I'd emptied half my checking account to pay for her car repairs when the transmission failed. $3,200, transferred without hesitation when she called me crying about being stranded at the grocery store. Madison had been too busy with her yoga instructor certification to help, she'd said. The same certification she'd abandoned 2 weeks later for a new passion in crystal healing. The waiter, a young man with perfectly styled hair and an uncomfortable expression, returned to our table. His eyes darted between family members as Mom continued her orders. She requested the lobster bisque for Madison, the Caesar salad with extra Parmesan, and the shrimp cocktail appetizer platter. When his pen stopped moving, and he looked at me expectantly, Mom waved her manicured hand dismissively. "Nothing for Casey," she announced loud enough for the adjacent tables to hear. "He's probably not hungry anyway." Madison barely looked up from her phone, where she was scrolling through Instagram, but I caught the slight smirk playing at the corner of her mouth. The same expression she'd worn since we were kids whenever Mom chose her over me. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Sarah, my girlfriend of 2 years, texting to ask how the birthday dinner was going. I left it unanswered. "Madison's wellness business is really taking off," Mom began, launching into her favorite topic. "She had 3 clients last month. 3. Can you imagine the dedication it takes to build something from nothing?" I wanted to mention that Madison's wellness business consisted of a Facebook page with 47 followers and a business card she'd designed on a free website, but I stayed quiet. The business hadn't made a profit in its 18 months of existence. Every piece of equipment, every training course, every rental space fee had come from Mom's checking account. "She's going through such an important transition right now," Mom continued, reaching over to pat Madison's hand. "Starting over at 34 isn't easy. She needs our support." This was Madison's 4th career change in 2 years. She'd been a life coach, a social media consultant, a jewelry designer, and now a wellness guru. Each venture funded entirely by our mother. Each one abandoned the moment it required actual work. Uncle Robert and Aunt Patricia arrived then, followed by my cousin Tyler. They'd driven 2 hours from Connecticut for this dinner. Uncle Robert's eyes found mine immediately, and I saw the question there. The same question he'd been asking silently for years. "Why do you put up with this?" They took their seats, and Mom immediately began her performance for the expanded audience. "Madison's considering opening a meditation studio," she announced proudly. "Downtown, in that beautiful historic building on State Street." "That's wonderful," Aunt Patricia said politely, though her eyes flickered to me with concern. "Of course, it requires investment," Mom continued. "But that's what family is for, supporting each other's dreams." The waiter returned with Madison's appetizers, setting them down with practiced elegance. The lobster bisque steamed with rich cream and chunks of pink meat. The shrimp cocktail arrived on a crystal platter with ice, each shrimp massive and perfectly curled. My stomach growled audibly in the quiet moment between Mom's words. "See?" Mom laughed, pointing at me. "I told you he should have eaten before coming. Casey never did learn to plan ahead." Tyler shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Actually, Aunt Margaret, Casey just got promoted to senior project manager at his firm. That takes incredible planning skills." Mom's dismissive wave cut through the air. "Construction work is construction work, Tyler. It's not like he's building a business like Madison." The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire that had been burning for years. I watched Madison continue scrolling through her phone, not even pretending to be engaged with the family gathering. She knew Mom would defend her no matter what. Then Mom cleared her throat, the way she always did before making an announcement. The entire table seemed to lean in slightly, trained by years of family dinners to recognize the signal. "I've been doing a lot of thinking lately," she began, folding her napkin precisely in her lap, "about the future, about legacy, about what happens to everything your father and I built together." My chest tightened. I knew where this was going before she even said it. "I've decided to update my will," she announced, her voice carrying that false brightness that meant she'd rehearsed this moment. "Madison will be inheriting the family home and the vacation cottage in Vermont. It just makes sense. She needs stability, a foundation to build her life on." The family home was worth $800,000 in the current market. The Vermont cottage, purchased by my father 20 years ago, had tripled in value to nearly $400,000. Madison would inherit property worth $1.2 million. "And Casey?" Uncle Robert asked quietly, his judge's instinct for fairness unable to stay silent. Mom smiled at me, the kind of smile that never reached her eyes. "Casey gets the most valuable thing of all: memories, life lessons, the knowledge that he helped his family when they needed it." The silence that followed was deafening. Aunt Patricia's mouth had fallen slightly open. Tyler stared at his water glass as if it might provide answers. Madison finally looked up from her phone, trying and failing to hide her triumphant expression. "That's very generous of you, Mom," Madison said sweetly, reaching over to squeeze Mom's hand. "I promise I'll take good care of everything." I poured myself a glass of water from the crystal pitcher, my hand surprisingly steady. The ice clinked against the glass in the quiet restaurant. Other diners had begun to notice our table, the way voices carry when emotion runs high. I could feel their curious glances, their polite attempts not to stare at the family drama unfolding over appetizers. Uncle Robert cleared his throat. "Margaret, don't you think both your children should inherit equally?" That's what Tom would have wanted. My father's name in the air made Mom's face harden. "Tom isn't here to make those decisions anymore, Robert. I am. And I know what's best for my children." "Casey's been paying your bills for years," Aunt Patricia said softly, her courage finally finding its voice. "Doesn't that count for something?" "Those were gifts," Mom said firmly. "Given freely. I never asked him for anything." The lie was so bold, so complete, that I almost admired it. Every payment had come after tearful phone calls, after guilt-laden conversations about how she couldn't make ends meet, how Madison was trying so hard but just needed a little more help, how I was the only one she could count on. Mom seemed energized by the announcement, as if revealing her favoritism publicly had lifted a weight from her shoulders. She turned to address the entire table, her voice taking on the tone of a professor delivering a lecture on life choices. "You see, Casey has always been impulsive with money," she began, gesturing toward me with her salad fork, renting that apartment downtown when he could be saving money living at home. "Madison understands the value of family support." Madison had lived at home rent-free for 8 years. 8 years of Mom cooking her meals, doing her laundry, paying her cell phone bill, car insurance, health insurance, and giving her spending money for nights out with friends. But in Mom's narrative, this was wisdom, not dependence. "And his career choice," Mom continued, shaking her head sadly. "Construction management. He had such potential. Could have been a doctor or a lawyer, like your father wanted. Instead, he chose to work with his hands." "It's honest work," Tyler interjected, but Mom wasn't listening. "Madison, on the other hand, is an entrepreneur, a visionary. She sees possibilities where others see obstacles." The waiter arrived then with Madison's surf and turf, and the presentation was truly spectacular. The lobster tail was massive, butter-poached and glistening, arranged artfully beside a prime ribeye that had been perfectly seared. Truffle mac and cheese nestled in a small cast-iron skillet, and grilled asparagus spears were arranged like a fan. The smell was intoxicating, rich and savory, filling the air around our table. Madison immediately pulled out her phone. "Oh my God. This is perfect for my Instagram. Casey, take a photo of me with it." It wasn't a request. I stood up, took her phone, and watched through the screen as she posed with her meal, adjusting her hair, tilting her head at various angles, her hand positioned just so beside the plate. "Make sure you get the whole presentation," she instructed, "and the restaurant logo in the background. I'm tagging them." I took 17 photos before she was satisfied. She immediately began uploading them, adding filters and hashtags. Best mom ever, blessed, family dinner, luxury lifestyle, grateful, surf and turf, birthday dinner, spoiled, foodie life. "Casey, you're making everyone uncomfortable, just standing there," Mom said. "Sit down." I returned to my empty place setting, watching Madison cut into her lobster. Butter ran down the white meat, pooling on the plate. My stomach had moved past growling to a hollow ache. "We should order wine," Mom announced. "A celebration deserves proper wine." She flagged down the waiter and requested the wine list. Her eyes went directly to the premium section, her finger trailing down prices that made my eyes water. She selected a Chateau Margaux, $300 per bottle. "We'll need 2 bottles," she told the waiter, "and glasses for everyone except." She paused, looking at me. "Casey doesn't appreciate good wine. He'd rather have beer, wouldn't you, honey?" "I'm fine with water," I said evenly. "See? He doesn't even want any. More for us then." The waiter's discomfort was visible now, his professional smile strained as he went to retrieve the wine. I wondered what he thought of our family, if he'd go home tonight and tell his roommates about the mother who ordered feast for one child while the other sat with nothing. Madison had moved on to her ribeye, cutting into the pink center with satisfaction. "Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about something," she said between bites. "The meditation studio is going to need more startup capital than I initially thought." "Of course, dear. How much do you need?" $15,000 should cover it. For the initial renovation and equipment, Mom didn't even hesitate. She reached into her purse, that same Coach bag I'd bought her for Mother's Day 3 years ago, and pulled out her checkbook. Right there, in the middle of the restaurant, she wrote a check for $15,000 and slid it across the table to Madison. "Thank you, Mom," Madison said, folding the check and tucking it into her designer wallet. "You always believe in me." "Of course I do, sweetheart. You're going to do amazing things." Then Mom turned to me, and her expression changed like someone had flipped a switch. The warmth disappeared, replaced by something cold and calculating. "Speaking of money," she said, her voice carrying across the table, "you still owe me $500 from college. Remember? When I helped you with textbooks?" The money she was referring to had come from an education fund my father had specifically set aside for me before his death. She'd controlled the account and doled out the money like she was doing me a favor. But the truth didn't matter now. It never had. "I expect you to pay me back by next week," she continued. "It's been 12 years, Casey. Even you should be able to manage $500 by now." The entire table had gone silent. Uncle Robert's face was red with suppressed anger. Aunt Patricia had her hand over her mouth. Tyler was typing something on his phone under the table, his jaw clenched. Madison took another bite of lobster, completely unbothered by the tension. "This surf and turf is incredible," she said. "Definitely worth the price. You should try it sometime, Casey." "Oh, wait. You'd have to save up for like a month, right?" She laughed at her own joke, and Mom joined in, their laughter mixing with the clink of silverware and crystal. The other diners were definitely watching now, their attempts at discretion abandoned. We'd become dinner theater, a cautionary tale about family dysfunction playing out over overpriced seafood. The wine arrived, and the waiter made a show of presenting it to Mom, who acted like she was a sommelier despite not knowing the first thing about wine beyond the price tag. She tasted it with exaggerated consideration before nodding her approval. The waiter poured glasses for everyone except me, the empty space in front of me growing more conspicuous with each passing moment. "A toast," Mom announced, raising her glass. "To Madison and her bright future. To family supporting family. To knowing your worth. Everyone raised their glasses half-heartedly except Madison, who clinked hers against Mom's with enthusiasm. I raised my water glass, the gesture seeming to amuse Mom even more. "Water," she said, shaking her head. "Even now, you can't fully participate. This is why Madison needs the inheritance, Casey. She knows how to live. You just know how to exist." I set down my water glass with deliberate calm, the soft click of glass on tablecloth somehow louder than all the restaurant noise around us. My chair scraped against the floor as I stood, the sound drawing eyes from neighboring tables. I pulled out my phone, found my bank's app, and dialed their automated service line. "What are you doing?" Mom asked, her voice sharp with irritation. I held up one finger, requesting silence, then put the phone on speaker. The automated voice filled the space around our table, clear and professional. "Welcome to First National Bank. Please enter your account number, followed by your PIN." I entered the numbers slowly, making sure everyone could hear each tone. Madison had stopped eating, her fork suspended halfway to her mouth. "For account balance, press 1. For recent transactions, press 2. I pressed 1. Checking account balance. $47,312. Savings account balance. $168,940. $1. For credit line information, press 3. I pressed 3. Platinum card, available credit. $75,000. Black card, available credit. $100,000. I ended the call and slipped the phone back into my pocket. The silence at our table was complete. Even the waiter, who had been approaching with dessert menus, stopped in his tracks. "You're showing off," Mom stammered, her face flushing red. "This is tacky, Casey. Completely inappropriate." I turned to the waiter with a pleasant smile. "I'd like to order now, please. I'll have the surf and turf special, same as my sister. Also, the chef's special appetizer platter, the Caesar salad, the lobster bisque, and for dessert, the 7-layer chocolate soufflé, the wine pairing menu as well. Put it all on a separate check, please." "Of course, sir," the waiter replied, relief visible in his professional demeanor. "You can't just—" Mom started. "I thought I was too poor to eat here," I said, sitting back down. "But it turns out I can afford my own meal just fine." Madison found her voice. "Having money doesn't mean you need to flash it around like some nouveau riche wannabe." "Interesting perspective from someone documenting a $200 dinner on Instagram for likes," I replied. Tyler let out a sound that might have been a laugh, disguised as a cough. Uncle Robert was studying me with the intense focus he used to display in the courtroom, recognizing that something significant was happening. "This is about respect," Mom said, trying to regain control. "You're disrespecting this family dinner, my birthday celebration." "No," I said, pulling out my phone again. "Let's talk about respect, and let's talk about family." I opened my voice recorder app and set it on the table. "I've been recording this dinner conversation. Legal in this state, as Uncle Robert knows. One-party consent for recordings." Uncle Robert nodded slowly. "That's correct. What are you playing at?" Madison demanded, her casual demeanor finally cracking. "I'm not playing anything," I said. "But you are, Madison. Tell me, does Jake Patterson ring a bell? Elder law attorney, offices on Maple Street?" The color drained from Madison's face so fast I thought she might faint. Her eyes darted to Mom, then back to me, calculating rapidly. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, but her voice had gone up an octave. "Really? Because Jake's secretary remembers you very clearly. You had a 2-hour consultation last month about having Mom declared incompetent. You wanted to gain power of attorney over her assets." Mom's head snapped toward Madison. "What?" "She was asking about the legal standards for mental incapacity," I continued. "Specifically, how to document someone's declining judgment to build a case for conservatorship." "That's not. I was just—" Madison stammered. "Jake called me," I said. "Professional courtesy, since I've sent him business over the years. He was concerned about the questions you were asking." Particularly your interest in how quickly you could liquidate real estate assets once you had control. The waiter arrived with my appetizers, setting them down in the ringing silence. The chef's special platter was a work of art, with oysters on the half-shell, ahi tuna tartare, and truffle-infused items I couldn't even identify. I picked up an oyster and tilted it back, the briny sweetness, a perfect counterpoint to the bitter family drama. Madison, is this true? Mom's voice was small, confused. She was trying to protect you, Madison said quickly, scrambling. From Casey. He's the one who's been manipulating you. Manipulating her? I pulled out a folder from my jacket, one I'd been carrying for 3 months, waiting for the right moment. Let's look at some numbers. I spread the papers on the table. Car repairs. March, $3,200. New roof. January, $12,000. Property taxes, every quarter for 5 years, $42,000 total. Medical bills when insurance wouldn't cover mom's surgery, $18,000. Each receipt was highlighted, organized chronologically. Total contributions from me over the past decade, $93,718. I pulled out another sheet. Total contributions from Madison over the same period, $0. That's not fair, Madison protested. I don't have money like you do. No? What about the money from Brad? The name hit Madison like a physical blow. She actually reeled back in her chair, her hand going to her throat. Who's Brad? Mom asked, looking between us. Madison's husband, I said simply. Of 3 years. The explosion of voices that followed my revelation was everything I'd expected and more. Mom's sharp intake of breath, Madison's panicked denials, the extended family's shocked exclamations, all blended into a symphony of chaos. But I remained calm, cutting into my surf and turf with steady hands. You're lying, Madison said, but her voice lacked conviction. Brad Thompson, I said between bites of perfectly cooked ribeye. Tech entrepreneur. Sold his first startup for $12 million. Currently CEO of Neptune Technologies. Your husband, since June 15th, 3 years ago. Ceremony at the courthouse in Las Vegas. I pulled out my phone and showed Mom the marriage certificate I'd downloaded from Nevada Public Records. The names were clear. Madison Fuller and Bradley Thompson. You got married? Mom whispered. And didn't tell me? It's complicated, Madison started. It's not complicated at all, I said. You wanted to keep collecting money from Mom while Brad funds your actual lifestyle. The wellness business that's never made $1? Brad covers those losses. The designer clothes you wear while claiming to be broke? Brad's credit card. That new Mercedes you park 3 blocks away when you visit Mom so she won't see it? Brad's anniversary gift. Uncle Robert leaned forward. This is fraud, Madison. Legal, actionable fraud. You don't understand, Madison said desperately. Brad and I have an arrangement. We keep our finances separate. Separate? I laughed. Is that what you call him transferring $8,000 into your account every month for personal expenses? As if on cue, the restaurant door opened and Brad Thompson walked in. 6'3", wearing a custom suit that probably cost more than Madison claimed to make in a year. He looked like he'd stepped out of a Forbes article about young tech moguls, which, actually, he had, 3 times. I'd texted him an hour ago, just before we'd arrived at the restaurant. A simple message. Your wife is at the Sterling Room, scamming her mother out of money again. Thought you should know. Brad! Madison gasped, standing so quickly she knocked over Mom's wine glass. Red wine spread across the white tablecloth like blood. Hello, Madison, Brad said coolly. Casey. Mrs. Fuller. He nodded to each of us in turn, then pulled out the empty chair beside Madison. I think we need to have a conversation. How dare you contact my husband? Madison hissed at me. Your husband? Mom repeated, still processing. The husband you hid from me for 3 years? Brad pulled out his phone, opening his banking app. Mrs. Fuller, I need to show you something. These are transfers I've made to Madison over the past 3 years. He turned the screen toward Mom. $300,000 total, separate from our household expenses, which I also cover entirely. Mom's hands shook as she looked at the screen. 300,000? But she told me she was broke. She said the wellness business was struggling. She said she needed my help. The wellness business doesn't exist, Brad said flatly. It's a Facebook page and an excuse for Madison to avoid getting a real job. I've been patient, hoping she'd find her path. But I recently discovered she's been taking money from you while I'm supporting her completely. Tyler, who had been suspiciously quiet, finally spoke up. I have something to add. He pulled out his phone, swiping to his photos. Last Thanksgiving, I saw Madison going through your purse, Aunt Margaret. She took cash from your wallet. I have a video. He played the video, and there was Madison, clear as day, pulling bills from Mom's wallet while Mom was in the kitchen. The timestamp showed it was during our family Thanksgiving dinner. That's not all, Tyler continued. Christmas, Easter, 4th of July. Every family gathering, she takes money. Sometimes from purses, sometimes from the emergency cash you keep in the kitchen drawer. Madison's face had gone from pale to green. You've been spying on me? I've been documenting theft, Tyler replied simply. I didn't say anything because I didn't want to cause family drama. But Casey's right. This has gone too far. My lobster bisque arrived then, rich and creamy, and I took a spoonful while the family absorbed these revelations. The waiter, professional to his core, managed to serve my entire feast without acknowledging the drama unfolding around him. There's more, I said, once the waiter had gone. Madison has been intercepting Mom's mail. Every card I've sent for birthdays, holidays, just to say hello, she's destroyed them. Every time I've called and left voicemails, she's deleted them during her weekly visits to help Mom with her phone. That's why you never. Mom's voice trailed off, the manipulation becoming clear. I sent you flowers every Mother's Day, I continued. Madison donated them to her yoga studio and told you I forgot. I invited you to my promotion dinner 6 months ago. Madison told you I specifically didn't want you there. Sarah chose that moment to arrive. My girlfriend walked in with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were walking into. She carried a professional briefcase and wore the kind of suit that said she meant business, because she did. Sorry I'm late, she said, kissing my cheek before taking the last empty chair. Traffic was horrible. Everyone, I said, this is Sarah, my girlfriend, and also a forensic accountant who's been helping me document Madison's fraud. Sarah opened her briefcase with practiced efficiency. Mrs. Fuller, I've identified approximately $200,000 in fraudulent activity connected to your daughter Madison. This includes false insurance claims filed using your information, credit cards opened in your name, and systematic theft of both cash and valuable items from your home. She laid out document after document, each one meticulously labeled and annotated. There's also the matter of the attempted sale of your Vermont cottage. What? Mom gasped. Madison created fake documents claiming you'd given her power of attorney, Sarah explained. She had a buyer lined up and would have completed the sale if Casey hadn't discovered it and intervened. He actually purchased the property through an LLC to prevent the fraudulent sale. Madison stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. Sit down, Brad said quietly, but with steel in his voice. Or I call my lawyer right now and start divorce proceedings based on fraud and hidden assets. Your choice. Madison sat. Brad continued to scroll through his phone, his expression growing darker with each swipe. I hired a private investigator 2 months ago, he said, his voice cutting through the tension. I knew something was wrong when Madison kept needing money despite my generous monthly allowance. He showed Mom his phone screen. She's been living in my downtown condo, the one worth $1.2 million, while telling you she lives in a studio apartment. She drives my cars, uses my credit cards, has access to my investment accounts. And yet she's taken how much from you? Sarah pulled out a calculator, adding figures from her documents. Based on my forensic analysis, over the past 10 years, Madison has taken approximately $470,000 from Mrs. Fuller through various means. Direct cash gifts, stolen items, fraudulent charges, and intercepted benefits that should have gone to household expenses. 400. Mom couldn't finish the sentence. Meanwhile, I said, gesturing to my folder, I've been covering all the actual household expenses Madison claimed to be helping with. The irony is, Mom, you've been paying twice. Once to Madison for help that never came, and once through me for the actual bills. Tyler cleared his throat. I've been documenting everything on social media too. Madison's Instagram shows the real story. He pulled up her account. Look at these posts from the past month. Spa retreat in Sedona, shopping spree at Nordstrom, dinner at French Laundry, all while claiming to be broke. Each photo was tagged with luxury living. Blessed, living my best life. Treat yourself. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. You've been stalking my social media? Madison accused. It's public. Tyler shrugged. And evidence of fraud when you're claiming poverty to scam your mother. Brad stood up, pacing now, his composure cracking. Do you know what this means for me? My reputation? My company? I'm married to a con artist. My investors will have a field day with this. It's not that bad, Madison pleaded. Not that bad? Brad laughed bitterly. You've been stealing from your own mother while I pay for everything. You told me she was wealthy and didn't need help. You said Casey was the one taking advantage. God, I'm such an idiot. The waiter arrived with my wine pairings. 5 different glasses of carefully selected wines. I took a sip of the first one, a perfect burgundy that complemented the richness of the meal. The normalcy of the action seemed to ground everyone, reminding them we were still in a public restaurant. Mrs. Fuller, Sarah said gently, there's something else you need to know. The mortgage on your house was in default. You were 3 months from foreclosure. Mom's face went white. But I gave Madison the money for the mortgage every month. She kept it, Sarah said simply. Casey discovered the default notices that Madison had been hiding. He paid off the entire mortgage balance to save the house. He now owns it free and clear. You own my house? Mom asked me, bewildered. I own the house that was about to be taken by the bank, I corrected. The house you live in. The house that will always be your home. I just made sure Madison couldn't steal it or lose it through her neglect. Aunt Patricia finally spoke, her voice shaking with suppressed emotion. Robert and I have known something was wrong for years. We should have said something sooner. Yes, you should have, I agreed. But everyone was so concerned about keeping the peace, about not causing drama, that you enabled this dysfunction. Uncle Robert nodded slowly. Casey's right. As a judge, I've seen this pattern hundreds of times. Family members staying silent while one person manipulates and another suffers. It never ends well. But I'm also guilty, Robert continued, reaching into his jacket. Because I have these. He pulled out a thick envelope, Tom's original will, his real wishes for his estate. Casey, your father left you $500,000 in a trust. Your mother convinced the estate lawyer to dissolve it for family expenses. Mom's face crumbled. That money went to important things. Madison's education, her businesses. Madison dropped out of college 3 times, I pointed out. And every business failed because she never actually worked at them. That was my inheritance funding her fantasies. Madison tried once more to salvage something. This is all Casey's jealousy talking. He's always resented me for being Mom's favorite. Favorite? I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. You're not her favorite, Madison. You're her project, her excuse to avoid dealing with Dad's death. As long as she's saving you, she doesn't have to face her own grief. The truth of it hung in the air like smoke. Mom's tears started then, silent and steady. Every time you failed, I continued, looking at Madison, Mom could swoop in and save you. It made her feel needed, and you knew it. You exploited her grief and turned it into a cash machine. That's enough, Brad said suddenly. Madison, we're done. I'll have divorce papers drawn up this week. You can keep the car and the clothes, but everything else stays with me, including the $300,000 you'll need to pay back to your mother. Brad, please, Madison begged. No, he said firmly. I fell in love with someone who doesn't exist. The struggling entrepreneur with a difficult family. The victim of a jealous brother. It was all lies. My dessert arrived. The 7-layer chocolate soufflé. A monument to decadence. I took a bite. The chocolate melting on my tongue, while my family's entire dynamic melted down around me. I set down my dessert spoon and stood up once more, this time commanding the attention not just of our table, but of the entire section of the restaurant. The moment had come for the final revelation. "I have something to tell all of you," I began, my voice carrying clearly. "For the past 5 years, I haven't been just a construction manager. I own Fuller Construction Group. We have 40 employees, 12 active projects, an annual revenue of $12 million. The silence was absolute. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving. I started the company with a small loan from a mentor who believed in me when my own family didn't. We specialize in sustainable building practices and have won 3 state awards for innovation in green construction. I live modestly by choice, driving a 10-year-old truck and renting a simple apartment, because I learned from my father that money reveals character. I pulled out my phone and showed them the company website, complete with photos of our projects, our team, and a feature article from Business Weekly about young entrepreneurs revolutionizing the construction industry. "You own a company?" Mom whispered. "I've been testing all of you," I continued. "For 5 years, I've watched how you treat me when you think I'm struggling, versus how you treat Madison when you think she's succeeding. Every slight, every dismissive comment, every moment of favoritism, I've documented it all." I turned to Mom. "You want to know the really twisted part? I bought your house from the bank 6 months ago. The Vermont cottage? I bought that too when Madison tried to sell it fraudulently. I've been protecting you from your own daughter, while you treated me like a failure." Sarah stood up beside me, her hand on my back in silent support. "Casey has been building a legal case for 2 years, she announced. "We have enough evidence to charge Madison with elder abuse, financial fraud, identity theft, and embezzlement. The only reason she's not in handcuffs right now is because Casey wanted to give her one chance to come clean. But here's what's really interesting," I continued, pulling out one final document. "Dad left more than just money. He left letters. One for me, one for Madison, and one for Mom. They were in a safety deposit box that Mom forgot existed. The key was in his office, in that old cigar box Madison threw away. Luckily, I pulled it from the trash. I handed Mom her letter, still sealed after 15 years. Her hands trembled as she opened it. As she read, tears streamed down her face. I knew what it said. I'd read my own letter hundreds of times. Dad had seen this coming. He'd predicted Mom's favoritism would destroy our family if left unchecked. He'd begged her to see both her children clearly, to love equally, to not let grief make her vulnerable to manipulation. Madison reached for her letter, but I held it back. "You get this after you've made restitution. Those were Dad's terms, not mine." "What does yours say?" Madison asked bitterly. "That character is wealth, and everything else is just numbers," I replied. "That he was proud of me for being who I am, not what I achieved. That he knew I'd have to be strong enough to save this family from itself." Uncle Robert stood up, his judge's bearing returning. "Madison, you have a choice. Casey and Sarah have prepared 2 documents. One is a full criminal complaint that will be filed with the district attorney tomorrow morning. The other is a restitution agreement. You pay back everything you've stolen over 5 years, with Casey managing the payment plan. If you complete it, no charges will be filed." "I can't pay back $400,000, Madison protested. "You can, and you will," Brad said firmly. "I'll cover half, as part of our divorce settlement, to protect my own reputation. You'll work to pay the rest. Real work. Casey's offered you a job in his company's accounting department, where Sarah can monitor your activity." "You want me to work for you?" Madison asked me, incredulous. "I want you to work, period," I said, "for the first time in your life. 40 hours a week, entry-level salary, no special treatment. You'll learn what it means to earn money, instead of stealing it. Mom had finished reading Dad's letter. She looked at me with eyes that seemed to see clearly for the first time in years. He knew, she said softly. Tom knew I'd lose myself in grief. He knew Madison would take advantage, and you'd be the one to save us all. I don't want to save anyone, I said honestly. I just want a family that functions on truth instead of lies. The waiter approached hesitantly with the check. True to my word, I paid for my elaborate meal, all $280 of it. Then I stood to leave. Where are you going? Mom asked, panic in her voice. Home, I said simply. My apartment that you've never visited because you assumed it was beneath your standards. Sarah and I are going to have a quiet evening away from all this drama. When you're ready to have an honest relationship, you know how to reach me. Casey, wait, Madison said suddenly. I'm sorry. I turned back. No, you're not. Not yet. But you will be. When you're working 9 to 5, earning every dollar, paying back what you stole, then you'll understand what sorry really means. Aunt Patricia stood up and hugged me tightly. We should have protected you, she whispered. I learned to protect myself, I replied. That's the gift in all this dysfunction. Tyler shook my hand. Respect, man. This was epic. This was necessary, I corrected. 3 months passed before I heard from Mom again. She'd entered therapy, working with a grief counselor to process not just Dad's death, but the 15 years of dysfunction that followed. Her first real conversation with me happened in that same therapist's office, with a neutral party helping us navigate the wreckage of our relationship. Madison had signed the restitution agreement and started working at my company. The first week was rough. She'd never had to clock in before, never had to request time off, never had to earn her paycheck. She cried in the bathroom the day she received her first real paycheck and realized how many hours of work it represented. Sarah supervised her closely, teaching her basic accounting principles and, more importantly, basic ethics. Brad's divorce from Madison was finalized quickly. He'd been more than fair, allowing her to keep personal items and the car, while taking responsibility for half her debt to Mom. He sent me a message afterward, thanking me for opening his eyes. He'd been so blinded by Madison's charm that he'd ignored every red flag. Now he was in therapy too, working on understanding how he'd enabled her behavior. The restaurant, the Sterling Room, became an unexpected ally. The waiter who'd served us that night turned out to be the owner's son. He'd been so disturbed by what he witnessed that he'd told his father, who reached out to me. They offered to host a different kind of family dinner, one where truth and reconciliation could be served alongside the food. We took them up on it 6 months later. That second dinner was smaller but healthier. Mom, myself, Sarah, Uncle Robert, Aunt Patricia, and Tyler. Madison was invited but chose to work her shift instead, finally understanding that earning money took precedence over family gatherings where she'd have to face her shame. Mom had sold the Vermont cottage, using the proceeds to reimburse me for some of what I'd spent over the years. She insisted on it, saying it was the only way she could live with herself. The family home remained in my name, but I'd drawn up papers, making it clear she had lifetime residency. It would be her home until she chose otherwise. I was so lost, Mom told me during that second dinner. After your father died, I couldn't see straight. Madison seemed so fragile, so needy, and you were so strong, so capable. I convinced myself you didn't need me. I needed a mother, I replied simply. Not a bank account, not an inheritance, just a mother who saw me for who I was. I see you now, she said, tears in her eyes. You're just like your father, strong, principled, and wise enough to know that sometimes love means letting people fail. Madison had been working for 8 months when she finally asked to read Dad's letter to her. She came to my office, thin from stress but clear-eyed, in a way I'd never seen before. I handed her the envelope, and she read it right there, sobbing as Dad's words reached across 15 years to speak truth to her. He'd written about disappointment and potential, about choosing the easy path versus the right path. He'd predicted she'd struggle with integrity and urged her to find her backbone before it was too late. His final line to her was simple: "Your brother will forgive you if you earn it, just as I forgive you now for what you haven't yet done but will." "How did he know?" she asked me through tears. "He saw patterns," I replied. "You were already manipulating Mom when you were 19. Small things, but he noticed. He tried to correct it, but then he got sick and everything fell apart." Madison made her first restitution payment that day. Not because it was due, but because she wanted to. $2,500 she'd saved from her paychecks, handed over with shaking hands and genuine remorse. The wellness business officially closed, its Facebook page deleted. Madison started taking night classes in accounting, realizing she actually had an aptitude for numbers when they weren't being used to deceive. Sarah became her mentor, teaching her not just about debits and credits, but about professional integrity. A year after the dinner that changed everything, we gathered again at the Sterling Room. This time, Madison was there, humble but present. She'd paid back $30,000 and was on track to complete her restitution in the agreed time frame. She'd been promoted to junior accountant, earning it through merit, not manipulation. "I stole more than money," she said during that dinner, addressing everyone. "I stole relationships, trust, years we could have been a real family. I can't get that back, but I can make sure I never steal again." Mom and I had rebuilt something genuine, not perfect, but honest. She attended my company's anniversary celebration, proud to tell people her son was a successful businessman. But more importantly, she was proud that I'd chosen integrity over easy money, that I'd protected her even when she didn't protect me. The family home became a place of healing instead of dysfunction. Sunday dinners resumed, but with new rules. Everyone contributed, everyone helped clean, and everyone told the truth. Madison would arrive straight from her weekend shift, tired, but participating. Mom cooked simpler meals, understanding that elaborate spreads had been another form of manipulation, a way to control and show favoritism. Sarah and I got married 2 years after that explosive dinner, in a small ceremony at the Vermont cottage I'd bought back. Mom walked me down the aisle, a reversal of tradition that felt right. Madison was there, not as a bridesmaid, but as a guest who'd earned her invitation through genuine change. During the reception, held at the Sterling Room, the same waiter who'd served us that night was now the manager. He told us our family's story had become legend among the staff, a cautionary tale about favoritism and fraud, but also a hopeful story about redemption and truth. Brad sent a wedding gift, a simple card with a check donating to a financial literacy program for young adults. His note said, "To prevent future Madisons from becoming victims of their own greed." He'd started dating again, this time with his eyes wide open to red flags he'd previously ignored. As I write this, 5 years have passed since that dinner. Madison has paid back everything she stole and continues working at my company, now as a senior accountant. She lives in a modest apartment, drives a used Honda, and has learned the value of earned money. She's in a relationship with someone who knows her whole story and loves her anyway, understanding that people can change if they truly want to. Mom lives peacefully in the family home, her favoritism replaced by balanced love for both her children. The therapy helped her understand that her enabling had been a form of grief-driven self-destruction. She volunteers now at a grief support group, helping other parents avoid the mistakes she made. My company has grown to 60 employees and expanded into 3 states. But the real success isn't in the numbers, it's in the integrity we maintain. Every new hire hears some version of our story, understanding that character matters more than profit, that family dysfunction doesn't have to define your future. The trust fund Dad left me, the one Mom had dissolved, I managed to recover about half of it through legal channels. I used it to start a scholarship program for construction management students who show integrity over aptitude. It's called the Tom Fuller Character Scholarship, and Madison serves on the selection committee, using her hard-earned wisdom to spot both potential and deception in applicants. Uncle Robert retired from the bench, but teaches ethics at the law school now. He uses our family's story, with permission, as a case study in how legal knowledge means nothing without moral courage. He tells his students that staying silent in the face of injustice makes you complicit, a lesson he learned the hard way. Tyler became a documentary filmmaker, and his first feature was about family financial abuse. We all participated, telling our story publicly. The film went viral, not because our dysfunction was unique, but because it was so common. Thousands of people reached out, sharing similar stories of favoritism, manipulation, and theft within families. Asterisk. The lesson I learned from all of this is simple but profound. Money doesn't corrupt people, it reveals them. My mother's grief made her vulnerable. Madison's greed made her cruel. And my father's wisdom made me patient enough to wait for the right moment to expose it all. But more importantly, I learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is forcing people to face the truth about themselves. Real love isn't enabling someone's worst impulses or protecting them from consequences. Real love is holding up a mirror and saying, "This is who you've become, but it's not who you have to stay." It's giving people the chance to earn redemption through genuine change, not empty apologies. Every family has its dysfunction, its favorites, its black sheep. But dysfunction thrives in darkness, in the things we don't say to keep the peace. The moment you shine a light on it, speak truth at that family dinner table, you give everyone the chance to choose. Stay in the darkness of comfortable lies, or step into the sometimes painful light of truth. Dad's final message, the one found in the safety deposit box addressed to all of us, said it best. A family built on lies is like a house built on sand. The first storm will destroy it. But a family built on truth, even uncomfortable truth, is like a house built on stone. It might be harder to construct, but it will shelter generations. Our house is built on stone now. It took a dinner that started with surf and turf and ended with fraud exposed to lay that foundation, but it stands strong. Madison works in the basement office, quite literally building from the ground up. Mom tends the garden, nurturing growth she once stunted with favoritism. And I continue building, both structures and relationships, knowing that integrity is the only foundation that truly lasts. What would you do if you discovered your family's love came with a price tag? If your mother's affection was for sale to the highest bidder, or in my case, the most manipulative child? Would you stay silent to keep the peace? Or would you risk everything to expose the truth? Have you ever sat at a family dinner table, watching favoritism unfold like a menu, where only certain people get to order? Share your own stories in the comments below. Like this video if you believe that truth, no matter how painful, is better than comfortable lies. Subscribe to hear more stories about families facing their demons and finding redemption. And share this with someone who needs to know that standing up for yourself isn't selfish. Sometimes it's the only way to save your family from itself. Thank you for joining me at this dinner table of truth. May your own family meals be seasoned with honesty, served with justice, and followed by the sweet dessert of genuine love. Remember, you deserve a seat at the table, you deserve to eat, and you deserve to be seen for who you really are, not who your family needs you to be.